As you're probably aware, Source 2 is a very complicated, mysterious and clickbaitable subject, but I'm kind of proud of this video because I think it'll give you a reasonable idea of how CSGO could look if given a Source 2 graphical overhaul, and not a rubbish one like Dota 2 got. I created identical maps in Source 1 and in Source 2 to finally compare once and for all what the differences between these two engines are. If you don't know what you're looking for here, don't worry, I don't either. But in this video I'll be trying to figure it out, and hopefully by the end we'll have a rough idea of what to expect from Counter-Strike's visuals if using this new graphical engine. But first, this video's sponsor, NordVPN, who are offering 3 different bundles to help keep you and your data safe online. You can check out which package is best for you using the link in this video's description. Using NordVPN channels your internet traffic through one of their servers on the way to and from the internet, helping you to conceal your true location and IP address from the places you visit, as well as providing an additional layer of security thanks to its malware prevention and tracker blocker features. NordVPN's 5,500 servers enable you to experience the internet as it is in 59 different countries across the world, helping sustain a fast and reliable connection to the information that's on the internet wherever you may be, which is particularly valuable for users whose governments may be restricting the sites and information you have access to. NordVPN's standard package provides you with their VPN, and if you want a more complete package, Plus also contains NordPass, which stores, protects and automatically syncs your passwords between devices, and informs you if any have been leaked online. And Complete comes with all of this, plus a terabyte of encrypted cloud-based storage. NordVPN comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Check it out using the link in this video's description and use the code CLICKS to get 4 extra free months added to the 2-year plan. To understand Source 2, you have to understand its incomplete nature was at least partly to blame for why so many Valve-made games over this past decade have been cancelled. From what I read in the final hours, it sounds like with Source 2, they got some of the engine done, and then it branched into several different game projects which all got wrecked because the Source 2 engine just wasn't ready for any of them. So I see Half-Life Alyx as being the title they used to actually get Source 2 done, a bit like Half-Life 2 did with the Source 1 engine. And while the engine might not be complete, it is at least to a stage where it can be used to power a modern and good-looking game, and not just one like Dota 2. So the engine I'm using to showcase Source 2 is the one used in Half-Life Alyx, and it could be that by the time it reaches CSGO, if it ever does, then it'll have even more features added to it. But I think we can expect many of the same graphical tricks to be carried over, because did you know that CSGO and Half-Life Alyx share something in common? They both need high frame rates. Much more so than other games do. Half-Life Alyx needs high frame rates because it needs to render 2 images 90 times a second, which is like 3 times more frames than most games aim to run at. And CSGO needs high frame rates because otherwise everybody complains about it. So what this means is, I don't think we can expect CSGO's version of Source 2 to deliver cutting-edge graphical effects like ray-traced reflections or complex, fluid, dynamic stuff. But we can expect it to find clever ways of looking better than it currently does using Source 1, but it will achieve this while still using techniques which don't slow your computer down by much. Parallax corrected Cubemaps, for instance. Still a massive improvement over the ones we currently have in CSGO, but they won't be as pretty looking as ray-traced ones could be. Let's get on with some examples. So returning to that first example that I used at the start of the video, when using the same stock settings, Source 2 looks much brighter than Source 1 does. That alone doesn't make Source 2's lighting better though, since we can just boost the settings in Source 1 until it matches 2's brightness. Well, I say that, but even as some bits get brighter, other bits remain darker, and even the shades of orange are different, so whatever I do, there will be differences between these two versions. Who'd have thought? But this is the first thing to note. Don't expect maps ported to Source 2 to look the same. I mean, obviously you don't want them to look the same, you want them to look better, but sometimes lighting changes are simply different, and it makes comparing even a basic map such as this one really hard. But the general way in which it's done is the same. Unlike most modern games which calculate at least some of the lighting as it's being played, Half-Life Alyx still pre-calculates pretty much all of the lighting in its levels, and it does this when the map is first made. It then stores all this lighting information away until the map is played, and then it can just use that information when required. This means the environments in Source 2 benefit from the same high quality ray-traced lighting as other games do, since all that lighting detail had been pre-calculated months before. It's kind of like watching a pre-rendered movie instead of an in-game cutscene. Pre-rendered movies can look better because your PC isn't having to do all the hard work of rendering it itself. This pre-calculated lighting was done in Half-Life 1, and in Half-Life 2, and in Half-Life Alyx. What's changed is how accurately the lighting is calculated and stored. For instance, this Source 1 map takes 5 seconds to render, but Source 2 takes 47 seconds to render the same map. It does its best to hide it under its new flashy looking interface, but open this window up and you can see it's the same old render window that we've known since the Quake 1 days, but hopefully with a few improvements since then. Once all this rendering's done, while the Source 1 version of the map with all its lighting comes to 650 kilobytes in size, the Source 2 one is over 2,000. In short, Source 2's maps take longer to compile and are larger in size. But that's to be expected, isn't it? PCs have advanced a long way since Source 1 was first released, so Source 2 takes the approach that it's probably worth a few extra resources to make its maps look better. Of course, this is just a simple map. As the maps get bigger and more stuff gets added to them, then the compile times and file sizes will greatly increase. The average Half-Life 2 map is 15 megabytes in size. The average Half-Life Alyx map is more like 800. So what do we get in exchange? Well, we get better ambient occlusion. In broader terms, it's all about what happens beyond the first light bounce. On these steps, in Source 2, you can see that the light bouncing off them appears to light up the faces around them, whereas in Source 1, it doesn't. Source 1 is capable of doing this effect, but I don't think it can do it on these surfaces because they're just too small. Clearly, Source 2's lighting is more precise and applies itself to smaller surfaces. So that's better. And we can see the opposite lighting effect happening where these stairs touch the wall. In Source 1 there's but a very faint, darker smudge running up the side, but Source 2's blends the stairs in with the wall a lot better, darkening the parts in contact with the wall. Each stair has a bit of a shadow cast by the one above it too. Returning to Source 1, this stuff doesn't happen. The whole structure seems far less connected with everything else around it. I don't think you'd say it was wrong if you saw this in a level, but if you switch to Source 2, you can see it's a lot more convincing. Now don't get me wrong, you can probably get the same effect in Source 1 if you mess about with the lighting properties enough, but the point is Source 2 does this with stock settings without me having to do anything to it, and I think this is about as fair a comparison as I can make. Here's another example. In this picture, you wouldn't know that this black slab is connected with the wall, would you? But in Source 2's, it casts a very clear shadow from where it obstructs the light that's bouncing off the floor just here. In conclusion, Source 2 casts nicer indirect lighting and shadows, which will make even the most boring bits of maps look better in ways that you can't yet imagine. And you might actually have to look quite hard to spot them, but it's there and it looks better, so that's nice. But sometimes, maybe Source 2 isn't quite such an improvement. Source 1's dark corner here looks suitably dark and dank, whereas Source 2's casts very clear lines from things obstructing indirect lighting, which I'm not sure is how it would be lit in this example. It's almost like it's too detailed for what should just be a dimly lit corner. And also, I noticed some splodgy, blobby bits where the ground connects with the wall. These bits are mistakes, and Source 1 used to cast similar mistakes, if I recall correctly. I assume it's not so much of a problem for Source 2 to have these errors, since Source 2 maps are typically filled with clutter and rubbish, so you'd be unlikely to see such a barren, simple corner on display. But yeah, it is still a mistake, and I think Source 1 does this corner better. But overall, I think you'll agree that Source 2's lighting on this map is better than Source 1's. But what if I use my mapping knowledge to increase the quality of the lighting in Source 1? Can I match Source 2's result? If I quadruple the number of points calculated in Source 1, yes, it takes longer to render, but the shadows end up looking more detailed, and you start to see all the same little details as was in Source 2. If I quadruple it again, it looks like this. And if I quadruple it one last time, it's now 64 times more detailed than it was in the first place, and it finally takes longer to render than Source 2's does. I might finally have made Source 1's map more detailed than Source 2's is, but with it comes more weird liney looking bugs, and the map's file size is massive at 27,000 kilobytes. So if I really turn everything up in Source 1, then it can potentially match Source 2 at default settings. But then I can just turn everything up in Source 2 to make that look even better again. Sure, it takes an eternity to render, but just look at the quality of those shadows. And get this, the map size is still smaller than the best looking Source 1 map was. In other words, Source 2 will allow mappers to make better looking maps with less effort and with surprisingly compressed map sizes, given how good the result looks. Valve, please roll out Source 2. I want to talk about reflections because they look nice and I don't need much of a reason to make a map out of all my favourite shiny materials from Source. This is a cobbled street from City 17. This is the tiled floor from the train station of City 17. This is sand from near City 17 and so on. All of these appear to reflect the world, but what they're really doing is showing a cube map, which is sort of like one of those 360-degree images that you see on Google Street View, wrapped around the object to make it appear shiny by reflecting its surroundings. This is fine as long as your view lines up with where the cube map was taken from, but move and suddenly the reflections no longer line up. Oh no, what can we possibly do to fix this? Did you know that if you use Google Street View in the Google Earth program, you can actually walk around inside a cube map? What they do is to try and turn it into a 3D shape. It's incredibly simple, but effective. And Source 2 has something similar. It again uses cube maps for its reflections. And check out this new reflective material I found. Turns out in Source 2 you can texture the whole map with a puddle. I love it. But even standard Cubemaps in Source 2 still look a lot better than they did in Source 1. It's because, just like the Street View on Google Earth, they'll shift about with you at a rate that's configurable within the editor. And this goes a long way towards selling them as being actual reflections and not just a static image that's stalking you wherever you may be. CSGO already has this feature on this map and only on the starry skybox thing here. I made a video about it a few years ago. Source 2 has another trick too, known as the Cubemap box, which, as the name suggests, changes the way it moves about from being in a sphere shape to being shaped more like a box. And if you take the time to adjust its size in the editor to be the exact same size as the room it's meant to represent, as if by magic, the reflection appears to reflect wherever I am in that room, perfectly, no matter where I'm stood. It's all just an illusion, of course. Individual objects in that room won't update in the reflection or anything like that. But to the common pleb, this effect may as well be something more expensive than a cubemap, like a second rendered plane, a screen space reflection, or even ray tracing. I think everyone can agree, these parallax corrected Cubemaps are a great way of improving the quality of reflections without slowing your PC down by much. So I hope these will come to CSGO so that I get another excuse to stare at shiny surfaces round after round. Bear in mind, if they're shaped like boxes, then they don't work so well outside, where they appear to transform the sky into the shape of a box. So don't use Cubemap boxes outdoors. You know one way in which Half-Life Alyx is very different from CSGO? It's VR, and because it's VR, it really benefits from lots of piss and shit floating about in the air everywhere to remind you of just how 3D it is. CSGO players do not like having fog and floaty stuff everywhere. They don't want volumetric fog and dust clouds and dust motes limiting visibility and getting all up in their face and stuff. But you know who does? Mappers. Mappers love that stuff. They're a bunch of weirdos. They find a room with clean air in it and they can't help but shoot so much floaty crap into that space that you can almost taste it. I challenge you to find a single place in Half-Life Alyx that doesn't have at least one cloud of questionable content floating about inside it. I dare you. And you bet if Source 2 comes to CSGO, it won't be long before mappers find all manner of creative ways of cramming fog and floaty stuff into every room of every map, hopefully without impacting gameplay too much. As a last example, I quickly made a cave with a car inside. I'm a lazy mapper, I don't know how anybody has the time to make displacements look good, so I just did the usual by going wild with the bump tool and then decorating it by throwing a load of rock models about the place. As expected, in Source 1 the result looked like someone had gone wild with the bump tool and thrown a load of rock models about the place. But Source 2 is a lot more forgiving of my slapdash detailing ways. The gorgeous models and textures in Source 2 help a lot and really emphasise how fake everything in Source 1 looks. Source 2 gives every surface a subtle but convincing level of sheen to it, and it's correctly lit, right down to the tiniest of bumps. And all this really helps pull the scene together. It's no longer just a bunch of props, it's almost a cave. And to think, I placed all this down without a second thought. I can't wait to see what experienced, patient mappers will be able to make of this. Imagine this improvement applied to everything. Mappers are going to love the more advanced material system in Source 2, the more model-based approach to building environments, the fact that leaks are no longer a thing. Yay. In this video I've approached Source 2 like it's an improved version of Source 1, but it's not. The best way of seeing it is as a brand new engine, and with new, best ways of doing things. I have barely scratched the surface of what Source 2 can do in this video, and my experiments into the engine so far are very limited, but I hope to do more.